There are a few important matters that I would want to think through in relation both to what I was presenting here and in relation to the questions that emerged. The one is about what it is we find wanting in the critique of apartheid. And my concern, as I was suggesting in the presentation, was that we seem to have a far too hardened, almost, we know in advance what apartheid was and and how it functions in the kind of public imaginary. And I think that there's a need to revisit what it is we mean by the concept of apartheid. Because if you think about it, the question of apartheid was a much more contested question through much of the 70s and 80s. And that we've arrived at something like the post-apartheid that is chronologically and juridically defined, but has not taken up the structures of feeling that might have resided within a critique of apartheid, the notion of the post-apartheid in the critique of apartheid. So we haven't taken that up. So that's one thing I want to think about, is how was it that the concept of the post-apartheid that was available under the critique of apartheid seems to have ended in has been dissipated in the kind of moment of the juridical and chronological arrival of the post-apartheid. So that's the one thing. The second is, what I was saying is we need to think again about aesthetic education. And aesthetic education in respect of the category that I was putting forward, a notion of public arts. And there to think the cinematic much more carefully in relation to the old debates on consciousness, or older debates on consciousness. That debate being that consciousness is either given through a kind of political experience, or consciousness is that which pits primary and secondary imagination against each other. And to think here about technology as part of the assemblage of consciousness. And so to merge and put into a different relationship consciousness at the level of primary and secondary memory, but also at the level of the technological. And to see what it is out of that assemblage we might do to arrive at something like another concept of the post-apartheid. So the point I want to make is that the way we remember apartheid today is not necessarily the way we will remember apartheid 20 years from now. And the work of the humanities might be to articulate the kind of future memory of apartheid. That future memory of apartheid that will give us the opportunity not to slide into the apocalyptic, or not to be caught within the kind of relations between history and apocalypse, but to think ahead, to think again about what the relationship might be between the human and technology, and what the critique of apartheid might look like when you put those two into relationship. And so I want to think about apartheid as less formed, as less solidified, as more more unstable as a category, and hence this is related to a project which I'm calling a history of sadness, or sadness as such. So I would communicate that at the very outset of the formation of the Athlone project, that Athlone as a sign is now a sign of atrocity. In other words, much of the struggle of much of the reading of apartheid pivots on this idea that apartheid was simply atrocity. And I want to argue that there was within the critique of apartheid a structure of feeling that we would call the post-apartheid. And that structure of feeling, as it dissipates in our present, might be a point of discussion, a matter of debate, a source of thinking knowledge and its project again. So that's at least what I would want to assemble here, that we might not want to end with apartheid scripting of the post-apartheid. We might want to get somewhere else. And that somewhere else is a more important way to thinking what I'm calling this notion of affirmative biopolitics through Tim Campbell's work. That I'm trying to think there, what is it in cinematographic memory that allows us to think of a notion of biopolitics that's not overwhelmed by a concept of death, but that gives us another lease on life. that puts the human in another set of possibilities.